Hmm? Ah!
You're listening to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
This episode, we're talking about a mild horror action comedy titled Hot Fuzz, co-written and directed by Edgar Wright and released April 20th, 2007. It is the second film in the Cornetto trilogy from Edgar Wright, starring Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. And if you know me, those who know me know I'm a huge Edgar Wright fanboy, and so I'm excited to be doing it again.
Me too. I'm super excited to revisit this one because I go back and forth between which one is my favorite out of this one and Shaun of the Dead. For different reasons, I love this movie. Shaun of the Dead I love because it's zombies. It's amazing. This movie I love for about a million other reasons that have nothing to do with zombies, are most of the reasons why I love the first one. There's just a lot of fun and camp and silliness, all still, though, shot in the way Edgar Wright likes to tell a story.
Yeah.
And I love that about it.
It's so incredibly clever. Like, every line has a meaning. Like, there's a callback. There's something that it's referencing. There's some kind of foreshadowing. It's such a cleverly written movie, and it's so funny. And yeah, like, that was like when I really knew. I was like, oh, I freaking love Edgar Wright as a writer and director. It's like Shaun of the Dead was fun. There's a lot of great stuff. We covered that last season, you heard. But with this movie, it's like, oh no, he's incredibly clever with his writing. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely is. I love that he kept some of those clever ways of shooting things that we got from Shaun of the Dead, just the different little quick clips of different things. As not Shaun, but Nicholas is going through his day. His pen, all those different things. The way that he shoots it. It's kind of like jump cutting.
Yeah.
I really like it a lot. Yeah, it's a ton of fun. I have to admit, though, I haven't seen the third movie.
I know. You've mentioned that, and it's like, how dare you? How have you not know? But we will cover it. I'm gonna go ahead and say that right now. It's happening.
Yeah.
Sometime.
Yeah.
Because absolutely, I love The World's End. It's a great movie, and yeah, it's the final part of this trilogy, this Cornetto trilogy, with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, and it's so much fun. But we're not talking about it right now. We'll get to it another time.
We definitely will.
But this podcast will be my way of absolutely making sure you finally watch that movie, because that's way overdue, and how dare you?
We've talked about this before, but I love that whenever one of us wants the other to see a movie, we add it to the podcast list and we end up covering it so that we make sure that we've seen it. And I feel like I get to do it a lot more than you do. But you get to do it on movies that I definitely should have seen and just haven't. So I feel like even though I might have more, the ones that you have for me to watch are bigger. Like, they're masterpieces that I should have seen.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. So we are going to get started the way that we always do, with a few production notes. So this was actually filmed, the majority of it was filmed in Edgar Wright's hometown of Wells, Somerset, United Kingdom. As you said already, it's the second film of Edgar Wright's Cornetto trilogy. But I also, when I was doing some research for this, that it's called something else. Like, they call it Cornetto, but it's also another terminology that they use for it is blood and ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I didn't know that until I was doing research. So the script was co-written by Simon Pegg. The budget was 12 to 16 million, and it grossed over 80 million at the worldwide box office. It's 121 minutes long. Pake, bring us a synopsis.
All right. A skilled London police officer is transferred to a village where the easygoing officers object to his fervor for regulations as a string of grisly murders strikes the town.
I think that is delightful. It definitely paints the picture for what we're about to discuss.
Yes.
So I think we have to start with Nicholas Angel, of course. Mr. Overachieving police officer who doesn't realize that he's making everyone else look bad by accomplishing everything that he does.
Right. He's extraordinarily talented in his field there in London. London. Just go ahead and it's one of my favorite running gags in this movie is that nobody in Sandford can pronounce London correctly. Like it's all like, you got a call from someone in London. Mm-hmm. Like they don't know. It's like they're in their own little bubble so much that they don't even know what London is.
It is. It's crazy.
It's a great running joke. But yes, Nicholas Angel, officer number 777. Yeah.
Not to be confused with 666, which is a sign of the devil.
Yeah, 777, of course, being kind of the opposite end of that, being kind of the number of God in certain tales and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's fitting. But yeah, he's being transferred, as I mentioned in that synopsis, to Sandford because he's too good. Mm-hmm. He's making him look bad. He gets promotion to sergeant in another place because he's too good and everybody else feels very
inadequate
next to him. And he says, I kind of like it here, which is the reason he doesn't want to leave London, which we see that in full circle later when they ask him to come back.
Yeah.
I like it here. Cause I'll be using, I pulled that from, that's a fuzz fact.
A fuzz fact? Is that what it's called?
Yes. Most of my notes, I'll go ahead and say my Hot Fuzz notes are a hot mess. Because, I don't know, it was just like a weird, I was just not in it today. And maybe it was because I was focused too hard on these fuzz facts. And I kind of knocked myself out of it at some point. But yes, a lot of it will be this. If you remember when we covered Shaun of the Dead.
Yes.
It's the same box set that I have the Cornetto trilogy, all three movies in. So I'm sure World's End has something like this too. But with Shaun of the Dead, a lot of my notes, I had these special, fun trivia facts that were a bonus feature of the DVD that you could have them pop up during the movie as you're watching. It would tell you a little trivia about that scene or that thing. I forgot what they called it in Shaun of the Dead, but this one also had it. So I had my fuzzometer, the fuzz facts. That would be given to me throughout the movie. So I was the ones that I thought were really interesting. A lot of them were filming locations or music credits or inspiration for this or why they did this. And I didn't find all of them incredibly interesting to put in here, but the stuff that I did find, I definitely added. So I'll be sprinkling those throughout everywhere.
Excellent. I look forward to hearing them. I did enjoy the 3 cameos that we got at the very beginning.
Yeah.
There's kind of this opening introduction that we get to him, but then we also find out about him going to Sandford because first his supervisor tries to tell him and that's not good enough. So they have to bring someone else in and then they have to bring in the chief inspector because Nicholas does not want to go to Sandford.
Yeah, it's a great gag. There's too many hilarious gags in this movie for me to try to point out all of them because it's just watch the movie.
Yeah.
But instead of me just telling you all the funny things. But yeah, but it's a great runner. It's a short one. But yeah, having Martin Freeman's character, which I love Martin Freeman. Yeah. And being do I got to call the inspector in? It's yes. And then calls him in. And it's do you really want me to bring the chief inspector all the way down here? Yes.
Yes.
Hey! And he's just right there outside the door with Bill Nye.
I know. Steve Coogan played the the second, or rather the inspector. And he's a very well-known English comedian and actor. So it was cool to kind of see the triple threat between those three. Yeah.
And all three of them opening with the exact same line. How's the hand?
Well, I think they just wanted him to go. Like, they're just thinking, we've got to get him out of here because we look terrible, because he's working all around us. Like, he's working circles around us while we're not achieving all the things he is. I think they were probably afraid he was going to be chief inspector, and they knew it would be too rigid to deal with him, Mr. Rule Follower, as a leader. So they had to get rid of him.
He's getting that promotion to sergeant in that small town, little village of Sanford, whether he likes it or not. Which, because they're saying, well, we're going to break, basically, it's like, we're going to make you go. And I love the little foreshadowing. Again, the clever writing. Every line means something.
Yes.
Of Nicholas saying, you can't just make people disappear, which is exactly what Sanford does.
They have a clever little place to put them, too.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, lots of funny stuff. Of course, like, they're like making sure everything is in a row for him. It's like, oh, wait, what about his girlfriend? Oh, no, they're not seeing each other anymore. He's not with Janine, which...
Another one.
Little gags and stuff with Janine. Those little gags are funny. You know, it's like, you know, what's the situation? With us or here? No, with here. And then she goes, 2 people involved, signs of a struggle, a complete mess. Again, are we talking about the crime scene or our relationship? Like,
well, you can kind of get where she's coming from when they do have the interaction, because he just seems really married to being a cop and not paying enough attention to her as a person. Which she has a job that is not, like, she doesn't have a cushy desk job. She's at a crime scene, okay? She's a crime scene investigator. He works for the police. Their jobs are, while are not connected, are within the same realm of, you know, as far as the type of job that they have. Like, it's all about criminal investigation. However, he is married to the job. And as we find out later, he's wanted to be a cop since he was a kid. And so he takes this very seriously, which is why I think he's a bit of an overachiever. I mean, a 400% arrest record over everyone else. Like,
right.
No wonder they want him to go.
Yeah. Yeah, but I like that we get that little scene with him with Janine, because introduces his Japanese piece, Lily. Because, like, she's, like, calls it something else. And, like, that's, you know, another thing that doesn't work out. He's just very precise. Everything she says, he's got a correction for. And it's like, you know, oh, you've wanted to be in the police force, police service. You know, like, everything is very specific. But, you know, their interactions are funny. You know, Janine, I'm not Janine. Janine.
That whole opening is just a riot. Like, it really is funny. Just, they're all masked up in those white suits so that they don't contaminate the scene. And he can't even find her. He's talking to whoever, and I mean, he's pretty bummed. He finds out that she's got another boyfriend already.
Yeah. Is it Bob? No. Does Bob look like somebody she would want to date? It's Dave.
I mean, come on. It's just ridiculous. And you know who played Bob? He did another movie. He's a director of a wonderful movie that we've done on here about aliens invading London.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Joe Cornish. Yeah.
Yes, it was. Yeah, he was. And then the other guy, Dave, is like Sam something. Sam.
Chris Waite.
Was the body. Chris Waite, that's it. Chris Waite was the body of Dave, but the voice that we actually hear is like, you know, hey Nick. Oh, that was Edgar Wright.
Edgar Wright is all through this movie.
Oh,
in different places. I mean, his vision.
He makes little cameos everywhere. He's even like a shelf stalker.
Yeah.
In the supermarket with the first time that Nicholas goes to talk to Simon Skinner in his office.
Yeah.
Edgar Wright's just out there stocking shelves in like a quick.
He's everywhere.
Little cameo. He just pops up.
He's everywhere. what really blew me away, one thing that I found out, is that I think when Nicholas and Danny are watching movies, that whole beautiful wall of movies that we see, that...
Yeah, it was a mix between Edgar Wright, another producer, I think, and then maybe even Joe Cornish himself. Like, I think there's, like, some of the different people, like, got together and, like, threw their DVD collections together to make up Danny's. Yeah.
I mean, that was beautiful. I mean, do you have your DVDs all aligned that way?
Kinda, but not really right now. I need more room. I've ran out of room for all of mine. So now they're like just stacked in weird places. I need more shelf space for the ones I've got.
Oh, get rid of everything else in your what more do you really need?
Right.
You might as well just make room for all your movies.
Mm-hmm.
But I love those little things about this movie because it's just
a lot of it.
Such a team effort when they're pulling together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he takes off. Nicholas Angel and his Peace Lily hit the road to Sanford, a model town with a model town.
I love model towns, can I just tell you? I have wanted to go to London for a long time, and one of the things I continue to research as part of going to the UK is where can I go see model villages, because I love model villages.
Mm-hmm.
I just think they're very cool.
Gets there, gets into Sanford, finds his room there. Funny little back and forth with Joyce Cooper there.
That was so great.
With the crossword puzzle. But like how he gets into his room and immediately is like, all right, I need out of here. Gotta go check out the town. Go see his new town, the people, the residents and everything. And... yeah, to the pub. There's a lot of that as a reference back to the pub, always to the pub.
It's not much different than going to the Winchester, is it?
Right. I mean, what else is there to do? Yeah, first night in Sanford, and he's already rocking the boat, right? Kicks all of the underage kids out of the bar, which is most all of the clientele for the night.
Yeah.
Which leads to our first instance of the greater good.
Oh, man.
With Roy Porter saying that his reasoning for the kids all being in there is like, well, if they're drinking in here, it keeps them from getting in trouble elsewhere.
Yeah. It's
for the greater good.
The greater good.
There you go.
I can never not hear anyone say that and not repeat it because it has to be in tandem.
Yeah. You have to. And it's a specific way you have to say it, too. If anybody says it, you have to follow it up.
The greater good.
The greater good.
Like honestly, like a cult.
Yes.
It's just like, you've been indoctrinated into, this Sanford world. And Roy and Mary were not pleased that Nicholas kicked all the underage kids out of the bar. I mean, he was looking around at them mentally thinking, they're not 18, they're not 18, they're not 18. And then he's like, boom, he has to get them out of there.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes quite a splash on his first night where he doesn't even have the job yet. He doesn't even start till the next morning, but he's kicked all of the kids out of the bar. And then his first encounter with his partner, Danny, is arresting him for drunk driving. And then along with picking up all those other kids on the way for different offenses.
Peeing outside. I mean, peeing on their shoes, kind of. I mean, he just turns around and it's like, yeah. Yep. Oh, man.
Yeah, he hasn't even started the job yet, and he's already more than happy to get started on a hardcore paperwork session. He's ready for it.
Oh, my God. Who wants to do paperwork? I mean, the thought of paperwork.
He's got 2 pens ready to go.
He does. And Sergeant Turner did not want anything to do with that. Which Turner's played by the amazing Bill Bailey. Seen him in a bunch of things. He's a great British comedian. It's perfect for this movie, I think. His pen's, running out of ink, but don't worry. As you said, Nicholas has multiple pens ready to go for all that paperwork.
So yeah, so as far as he thinks, I mean, he's like, all right, I'm fitting in here. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm ready to go. And yeah, so he meets everybody else the next day, which, fuzz fact, something that, I guess I didn't really realize, but yeah, it makes sense when you watch it again after seeing this. It's like, oh yeah, absolutely. When Nicholas is on that first morning run, the morning sergeant scene where everybody's saying the same thing, all of the NWA cult members are standing in the same positions as they are later in the film with the big final showdown. They're all in the same places that they appeared then.
Oh my gosh, even the woman
really
on the
cool.
bike?
Yep.
Oh man. That is cool.
Yeah.
I did.
There's a lot of foresight with that stuff. I love that.
It's how Edgar Wright is. It's how he creates. He puts things together in such a way that it all ties back together.
Mm-hmm.
So amazing.
Yeah.
I laughed so hard when he got to the station and found out that Danny was his partner.
Oh, I know. He's gone. Oh, God. Who's gone? You. Which, yeah, comes back to check out and find out, it's like, oh, you met my son. And you can see his face just like, now everything makes sense. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, Danny has a very different reason for being a cop than Nicholas. And we learn more about that later. But you can tell Nicholas doesn't really know quite what to think of this situation. This precinct and these people that now he is forced to work with, because he has been so diligent in following the rules and the letter of the law. And these people are focused on eating cake and ice cream.
As a punishment.
As a punishment. I don't remember being punished as a child with cake and ice cream.
Wouldn't that be something?
It would, wouldn't it? I think it would just encourage you to continue to misbehave. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is probably why, Danny continues to misbehave.
Right. Like cake and ice cream. Nicholas gets a little tour of the station, which has its own great sight gags involved with there. Riot Room, which is just full of cobwebs and a hedgehog for some reason. Mm-hmm. It never gets used. And then, of course, Evidence Room, completely empty.
Yep. Because they don't have any crime. Nothing ever happens. Mm-hmm. So they say.
Yeah, and then he meets with the Andes.
Which, oh my God, I loved. I loved this, because it was callbacks for me, seeing the two of them. It didn't mean so much back when I watched it the first time, but now it means something, because the two actors that play the parts we've covered a couple of movies.
Yeah. They're Run for Your Lives cast members in a way.
Yeah.
We've talked about them in separate movies. Rafe Spall, of course, The Ritual. Paddy Considine was in The Girl with All the Gifts. We talked about his casting and acting and stuff with M.R. Carey. That was really fun.
That was so great.
Yeah.
Yeah. But to see them in this respect, I mean, we're talking about 16 years ago that this movie came out. So to see them back then, it gets really confusing though. I mean, because one is Andy Wainwright and the other one is Andy Cartwright.
Yeah.
But they call them the Andes. And it's so funny when, Danny says, I bet you wonder why we call them the Andes.
Yeah, I think Frank says that, and he's like, because they're both named Andrew. You got it. But yeah, then Danny says it's like, also I try and have a conversation with them as like a long, uphill walk or something. Like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just funny.
But yeah, the Andes say some things which keep coming back, which is funny. They play a huge role of foreshadowing things. Because they talk about, Frank keeps talking about Popwell, Sergeant Popwell, the sergeant that was there before Nicholas that took over, which we find out what happened to him is because, again, he was stirring up things and wasn't towing along for the greater good.
The greater good.
So they had to dispose of him. But, one of the Andes says something about so you're here to jump into Popwell's grave. Which he goes, I'm not jumping into anyone's grave. which is a really funny fuzz fact. Literally, later in the movie, when Nicholas is running from the NWA members and falls into the catacombs where they've hidden all of the bodies, he finds the skeleton and the body of Popwell down there. So he did jump into Popwell's grave.
And how would you know it was Popwell? Well, he had
a big bushy beard.
Yes, he did.
The one thing Nicholas didn't have.
That they pointed out multiple times.
Also, one of the Andys, I believe, at the pub says to him, "No one's going to stab you in here, Sergeant. Not a member of the public, anyhow." But Danny does later.
Yep, he does. I feel like this movie, there's such an arc. We're talking now about Nicholas, but when we talk about Danny, there's a lot to talk about there, too. Because when Nicholas first meets Danny, he's kind of like, this guy is just, what do you mean he's like my partner here? I just don't see, he doesn't really see him that way. He doesn't think he's very competent.
Yeah.
Also, though, we have to point out another incredible member of this cast. I believe she's won Emmys and an Oscar. And that's Olivia Colman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of crazy seeing her in this role here in this movie because she has gone on to do some huge stuff after this.
Yeah. So, she plays a character named PC Doris Thatcher. She's the only woman on this police force. She's a police officer, not a police woman, according to Nicholas.
A policeman officer.
Yes. But you know what? She can
policewoman officer.
She can hold her own with the men. Like, she can dish it back out to them.
And according to the kind of jokes she'd make, she'd probably like to hold a lot of their own, too. I
have to agree with you there.
Sounds like a joke she would make.
Definitely.
Yeah. So it's a great little cast there. Just next in my notes, like I said, mine are going to bounce around everywhere. Fuzz facts. Taking up all kinds of space. So since they're next in here, we'll go with that. Some fun things in this movie that are taken, a lot of little things that happen in this movie are taken from real life incidences. Of course, Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg talked to police officers to like learn. So a lot of like the things that are said are like direct quotes from like them interviewing police officers to get ready for this movie or like stories and stuff like that. But also just like little things that happened with them and people they know. The music supervisor for this movie is a man named Nick Angel. Which is where they get the name Nicholas Angel. And the kind of gag that led into a unimportant, unfortunately turned out to be storyline, is that Nick Angel, the music supervisor of this movie, had told stories about how his name had been so occasionally misspelled in print as Nick Angle.
I can relate to that because my first and last name have been misspelled many times in my lifetime. It's not fun.
Right. Also, the was it Mary Porter having her age wrong in a newspaper? That also comes from, let me make sure I got it because it's in a different spot. Nira Park is a producer on this movie. Nira Park's mother has had that happen, and then Edgar Wright's mother has had her age wrong in a newspaper, and both have still not let it go. So
no, I don't think you do, right? I feel like sometimes you have to pick the hill to stand on, and that's the one you stand on.
Right. So that gag was from real life, and then lastly, Elvis, the runaway swan, inspired by a real incident in Wells, Somerset, where a swan escaped from the moat of the Bishop's Palace, which is the actual place that they used to film the castle where the NWA meet later on. And there actually was a new inspector that came from London to Wells, Somerset. And one of the first calls that he got was about this swan that had escaped the Bishop's Palace, and he assumed it was a prank. And later on had to eat his words and chase the swan around the local fields. So,
but did it? Was it owned by Peter Ian Staker?
P.I. Staker.
Staker.
I love that joke too. Stephen Merchant is great. He's like the one little, like, he's barely in the movie, but he's so fun. But yeah, P.I. Staker, the man who calls about the swan, which I love. Just again, that jump cut. You talk about like those quick cuts of Simon Pegg's character, of Nicholas Angel being like, P.I. Staker, piss taker, come on! And immediately cutting to going, yes, Mr. Staker.
Because things are different in the rural, the country. He's used to people being that way, I think, in London, like what they call taking the piss.
Yeah.
And all of these jokes. So he just thought it was just another joke that he's going to have to deal with.
So that was great. You mentioned the cornetto stuff. Again, this is random fuzz fact that throws in here because this scene that comes up shortly is him and Danny kind of on the beat, sitting around, not knowing what to do. So Danny's form of policing is just to hit up different shops and buy ice cream and candy and drinks. And so he goes in and gets a cornetto ice cream cone, which we see that the Cornetto trilogy, as we've mentioned, this is because the Cornetto ice cream wrappers play a part in all three movies.
Mm-hmm.
And so at least with these two, in Shaun of the Dead, it was a strawberry Cornetto because it was used for the red color to denote blood.
Mm-hmm.
While in Hot Fuzz, they only buy the blue, the original Cornettos, because the blue color denotes police colors.
Police? Yep. I actually knew that one.
Yeah.
And I know the color of the ice cream in the next one.
Mm.
But I'm not going to say it.
We'll get to that movie. Yeah. So most of Angel's time in Sanford has so far is just learning about and meeting all kinds of strange people and all of their really annoying small village problems, and putting up with his partner Danny. It's been quite the change for him, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, their idea of punishing Danny for spending the night in the jail cell was for Danny to buy ice cream for a week or a month. Rocky Road, I think. Was the ice cream. Chunky Monkey. Yeah, Chunky Monkey. Yeah. So that was their idea of a punishment, was for him to have to buy everyone Chunky Monkey.
Mm-hmm. So most of this has been just like boring nonsense. So he finally gets a little bit of real action so he goes to talk to Simon Skinner, who's such a creepy man. Timothy Dalton's incredible though. And while he's there, they're looking on the TVs and ooh, shoplifter. Things are gonna get serious. Here we go. Get a whole chase scene and everything, which leads to a returning gag from Shaun of the Dead that I really love, is the fence jumping scene. Of course, if we remember in Shaun of the Dead, it was Simon Pegg who took the fall on that first fence there. But now he's super agile while it's Nick Frost's turn to tremendously fail, right?
Oh, you know what? You could tell that Nicholas Angel was so excited to be getting to have a chase because he's been so bored. And he wants to go out there and capture criminals. So getting the opportunity to chase down the shoplifter was a really big deal for him. He was super excited about it. And I was happy that he could fly across those fences so much better than he did in Shaun of the Dead.
Right.
Even doing like a flip over one of them.
Yeah.
Nick Frost, not such a great run at the first fence. He did do better on subsequent ones, but yeah,
did he though?
Well, his attempts were better than they were on the first one.
It's another great gag, which for those who've seen The World's End, Daphne, you have it, but we'll get to that movie. But yeah, that gag does return again.
Awesome.
It's a great, the
I'm excited about that.
It's another great one. But yeah, trying to get into these modes so we see him on duty. Makes this chase here. We see them on like traffic duty, just checking speed, which that scene, Edgar Wright had the intention and went into that scene wanting to film the shortest car chase scene ever.
Okay.
And I think he succeeded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it wasn't very far, was it?
No.
No. And this is where Danny really gets to see Nicholas break out some of his psychological police procedures, I guess, or policing. Yeah.
He's got his notebook he can use to shake the hardest of lawyers / actors.
To me, Danny in this scene looked like a puppy. Like, he was so enamored with what Nicholas was doing that he just couldn't believe it. It's like he's a police officer, but Nicholas is really a police officer. Like, he's been stabbed and stuff. Like, I feel like he looks at him like he's his idol now.
Right.
And it's kind of adorable.
Yeah, so they pull over Martin and Eve.
Oh, man.
These actors on their way to this Romeo and Juliet performance, which God, just easily the worst rendition of Romeo and Juliet I've ever seen in my life.
Well, I've never seen Romeo and Juliet end with an upbeat version of the Cardigans' Loveful.
No, right. It's just like, it had like a circus clown aspect to it. It's like, death, you know?
Yeah, it made no sense. But it was still hilarious.
Right. But yeah, he meets up with these actors again, and it's just more creepiness from Skinner.
Skinner is very creepy.
Yeah. Leads to the next day where we have the deaths of Martin and Eve revealed in the spot that they were like speeding.
The accidental deaths. Because this is an ongoing theme that there are no murders.
Yeah, just a lot of accidents.
Just a lot of accidents.
Sorry, collisions.
Although some of the other things that happened I don't think were collisions. No. It was just other, explosions and madness.
Mm-hmm. And then we see Nicholas starting to get on the case of Simon Skinner a little bit because he pulls up and knows who it was, who died. And, he kind of, well, why would you know that? And it puts Nicholas onto this path of looking at him as the sole suspect. Mm-hmm. For most of the movie. Yeah. And then, back to policing. With the farmer.
Oh, man. Walder Frey.
Mm-hmm.
The amazing David Bradley.
David Bradley. I love that. Which, again, just with the gags. It's this little game of thick accent telephone.
Oh, man.
Which was really funny, but it leads to them seeing his armory of weapons, which they can fill the previously empty evidence room with, which will come back.
Yeah. I mean, it was a bit ridiculous when they walked in there. And, I mean, he's got a permit for that one. For this one.
What do you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. And not only does he have all of this weaponry, but he also has like a sea mine. Where do you get a sea mine if it's not from the sea? Like,
well, he probably fished it out of there at some point. Which again, like that was a little like fuzz fact thing is like, oh yeah, after the wars and stuff, there was a lot of those mines that just were left behind that people would just find. So that was actually, strangely enough, a very believable scenario that he would have. I don't know why you'd want to keep it in his shed like that, but yeah.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense to me. Like, it could blow up at any time, and all that ammunition and everything else is going to blow up with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We get Nicholas and Danny soon after that. At the pub, when Nicholas, like, giving in a little bit, like, okay, I'll have one drink. And it leads to actually a really great bonding moment between them. They talk about what led to where they're at now, why they wanted to be police officers, and we get kind of the story from both of them, which has a lot of meaning to each of them. Danny talking about his mother and these things, which are really great. And then you get the ketchup trick just out of nowhere in there, which is wild. But it honestly, but in the end, it's a good thing because like once Nicholas realizes like what's going on, and he kind of like warms up to Danny in that regard and loosens up a little bit more. Like, okay, we can just goof around. It's fine.
Well, and I think Danny too tells him, you know, you're really good at what you do, but you've got to learn. You got to turn your brain off. You got to stop. Like, he has a hard time turning it off.
Yeah.
And that's a problem because it affects all of his outside relationships. He doesn't really have any, except with his peace lily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which leads to, we talked about the DVD collection and stuff, but honestly, that's notes for Danny. I don't really, we'll get to those because I've got some thoughts and notes about that. But for Nicholas and his story, the next day, they've got this big party at the church. It's like fundraiser
It's a fete. It's a church fete.
Mm-hmm. And, that's where Tim Messenger comes up to him and has some important information for him, which, he's a goner at that point whenever he says, I got some real important information to tell you. Meet me at a later time in a different location. Well, that guy's done for.
Yeah, somehow he knew something about George Merchant, who had died when his house blew up.
Yeah, after Nicholas and Danny had taken him home from the pub.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how before each murder, there's like this flash to seeing a cloaked figure. And I remember the first time I watched this, I wondered if it just reminded me, I guess, a bit of Scream without the ghost face picture, like face.
Yeah.
So it stood out to me that way. Like,
I can see that.
Yeah. It's kind of like Scream.
Yeah, at this point, there's like something is going on. It's 2 murders. Mm-hmm. And Nicholas realizes, he's putting some things together. Skinner has been at the scene of both. And then when he pulls, Simon Skinner's name and he's not there, and Tim is waiting elsewhere, he kind of realizes, he puts 2 and 2 together and, all right, something's up. And he runs after Tim, but he's too late. Tim is killed. So that adds more to this theory that, it's definitely Simon Skinner. However, the movie does a clever little thing. When the crowd is gathering up around the body, Simon Skinner is down there with them. Mm-hmm. He's very hard to miss, or hard to see. He's easy to miss, but he is down there in that crowd. You'll see him walk up from behind. So he's not the cloaked figure at the top of the tower. No.
That piece of the tower that fell onto Messenger, and then he like stumbles with it, kills me every time. It shouldn't be funny, but I kind of laugh every time I see it. It's not funny, but I can't help it. It's just strange to me that he can stand up for a few seconds with it. Like, his head is gone.
Right.
It just makes me laugh, and I don't know why.
Nicholas, now knowing something definitely is up, because that's just like, you can't have this many coincidences back to back. Not this many accidents. You can't have Tim Messenger having a collision with a falling. Mm-hmm. Yeah, too many coincidences. So he starts digging into it, and he realizes Messenger might have been misspelling these things, including his name, in these newspapers on purpose to hide information in his articles. So he's connecting the deaths and who's involved and finding out this special information behind them about land and different things that could be going on. And then he goes and talks to Miss Tiller at the flower shop and gets more information from her, which, fuzz fact, Miss Tiller the Bean Spiller, coming from a grand film tradition of seemingly minor characters who know an awful lot of information.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And then he witnesses her being killed and chases this figure, which in those chase scenes, if you look really closely, you can see other hooded figures hidden in different places, which it's revealed that there were multiple people, but they're very, very hard, hidden. But
Oh
that
my
case, you
gosh,
can
I'm
see.
going to have to go back and do it because I've never noticed it. And I've seen this movie a bunch of times, but I've never noticed that. Not once.
You can see that it's multiple people. But it's hard to, yeah. So he's getting fed up because he goes back to the station and it's murder. I saw this happen. It's very clearly, but yet everyone's still joking with him and doesn't believe him.
Yeah. Yeah, he's really frustrated at that point. And I felt frustrated for him because people are just so set or beaten into submission that, oh, no, it's just another accident, or it's another collision, or it's another coincidence. It's not really a murder. They don't want to deal with it. No, it doesn't happen.
Frank says there's been no recorded murders here since... Well, yeah, not recorded, but buried ones, sure, all the time.
One at a time, or four at a time.
Yeah. And so Nicholas does some really great detective work, honestly. He puts together all these connections to Skinner through all of the victims and using Tim Messenger's articles, and he does a lot of great sleuthing. Yeah, so he ties it to Skinner and goes to him. But unfortunately, Skinner has his alibis. There's other people working for him, so the times that he can't be connected to certain things that have happened. And then what makes it even worse is then when you do get the answer to like how everybody died, it's not even that deep. The conspiracy doesn't really even run that deep. It has nothing to do with land. It has nothing to do with business.
No.
It's ridiculous. It's comedic how it's like, oh, they were just bad actors, or like I didn't like his house, or like too many typos and he was too gossipy. Like it's funny that like that's the real reveal.
Oh yeah, crusty jugglers.
Yeah, crusty jugglers.
Another new band name for you.
Yeah, so Nicholas feels super low after this huge swing and miss with Skinner because he thought he had him and he didn't. And so he just kind of like, whatever. Yeah, they were accidents. I don't care. Like, he is defeated. Even to the point, he's so defeated he's going to eat ice cream on the job, right?
Yeah.
Gonna go get that cornetto. So they go into the shop. But that's where he gets his next big clue is the shopkeeper, the lady in there. Just happens to slip up a little bit and makes a little comment. She says, "No luck catching the killers, then?" Which then he takes that as a big clue. Also, they hammer that important note home a little bit later because did you see there's a vinyl record hanging on the wall behind her?
No.
She says that. Yeah, it's a vinyl record of Hot Fuzz, the Killer's first album. It's on the wall behind her, which close to the movie title, also a clue to the reveal about it's not just one killer, but there are the killers. Which then, not a fuzz fact, but a Pake fact. The Killer's Hot Fuzz was the first CD I ever bought on my own. And then when I started collecting vinyl, it was the first record that I bought and started my collection with. So that was a fun thing to see. I was like, ooh, love that album. Nice catch.
I remember you said that. We talked about that one night when we were talking about music, that was your first purchase.
Mm-hmm. First CD and then first record when I started collecting.
See, how do you have room for all this stuff? Yeah.
So, yeah. Go ahead.
It left as soon as it came.
So Nicholas goes to the chief inspector here. Goes to Frank with this multiple killer theory. He's got it kind of all figured out, and then Frank has his way of talking it down. But yeah, Nicholas is on to them. So of course, after giving Frank this theory, being talked down, he goes back to his room to find a hooded lurch waiting for him in his room.
Lurch.
And he sacrifices his poor peace lily to save himself. He loved that thing.
Yeah.
More than anybody.
Yeah. Lurch, played by Rory McCann. a.k.a. the Hound from Game of
Yes.
Thrones, in a role that you would just never suspect him playing.
Right. Yeah, but he takes out Lurch, which leads to maybe my favorite moment of the movie, at least like to quote, other than the greater good, is his whole, did you take care of it? Yarp. Yarp. So he's not getting up again.
Narp. I know, it's so funny. So funny. So they think they've got the one up on Nicholas. And somehow Danny shows up there.
Yeah, I don't really know how Danny knew where to go, but of course over the radio, Skinner mentions, okay, come to the castle. So
yeah,
Nicholas knows where to go. How Danny got there, I'm not really sure, but
yeah, I thought that was strange.
Which then, because then Nicholas thinks that Danny is in on it also, because he's like, oh no. Once the whole reveal happens of, like I said, this whole just kind of the NWA, right? The Neighborhood Watch Alliance.
That is not what I think of every time you say NWA.
No, of course not. Yeah, this group is not as cool as the other one that you want to think of.
No, not in the slightest.
No. Of course, that other one probably wouldn't be a big fan of Nicholas.
Probably not.
Also, would still not like him.
No.
But yeah, it gets there. Yeah, we talked about that kind of a reveal. They've all been like pulling the strings and working together as the killers to make their little village so perfect for the greater good.
The greater good. They wanted to make Sanford great again.
Okay. I love it.
I'm surprised you didn't bring that up. I thought for sure you would, but I had to write it down. Man.
So then they're going to take him out, so he runs, and then as I mentioned, he falls into the catacombs. He does jump into the grave where he sees all the people who have jeopardized the perfect image of the village, who have been killed and disposed of. The old sergeant, the kids, the shoplifter, the living statue who's not so living anymore.
Yeah.
All of them.
Their biggest issue is they want to get rid of the hoodies, like the kids wearing the hoodies, like they're such a problem. They don't want them to be there because...
Which they don't see the irony of the fact that they're a group of people wearing hoods, but they want to get rid of the young kids wearing hoods. Like, that irony is just lost on them completely.
And this is all because they want to win this contest that they continue to win every year. Like, the reasoning behind killing the florist is because... killing Leslie Tiller is because they didn't want her to leave and take her talents to another town.
Right.
They want to
keep... have her. No one can.
No, exactly. It's ridiculous. Ugh.
But, yep, down there in the catacombs, they catch up with him, and it seems to be doomed, but Danny is there. We'll talk more about Danny, but Danny does save him.
He does.
Bringing back the notebook and the catch-up trick. Great thinking. Danny's way smarter than I think we give credit for.
He's coming along. You know what? Under Angel's tutelage, he's becoming quite the little cop.
Yeah. So he's doing it. Drives him, takes the body and drives him out to the outside of town to get him to escape. Which, fuzz fact, I'll keep throwing them in there. Simon Pegg there, Nicholas Angel says something about, are we come back in with our blue fury? And the reason that word or that phrasing is in the script is because that was also another title of the movie that Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright had flirted with a little bit instead of Hot Fuzz for a bit. So that's why that was in there.
But I love Hot Fuzz. One of the taglines that they had for this movie was, they're bad boys, they're diehards, they're lethal weapons, they are Hot Fuzz. Yeah. And I love that. I thought that was cool.
Yeah. Which, speaking of that, so Nicholas drives off, but then while he's at the gas station, he sees Point Break and Bad Boys 2 right there next to each other. And, those are Danny's favorite movies, and it really makes him think what he should be fighting for, and he decides he needs to go full action hero like those on this situation.
So amazing. He gets a whole crap ton of spray paint and sunglasses because he had to have, the perfect sunglasses.
Oh, yeah.
So he can go back to town. He basically deputizes a bunch of kids to go and spray paint all of the cameras. The hoodies. Yeah, it was great.
The school kids that he was like talking to, which, they probably think he's like the coolest now. Just rides up, armed to the teeth on horseback and gives them a whole bag of spray paint cans. Is like, go nuts on the CCTV cams, kids. Go.
Yep, do it. Do it. It was great. Loved it.
Yeah. But as he gets back into town, as the Andys said, everybody and their mother has guns around here. Mm-hmm. He says, well, like who? Like farmers. And who else? Their mothers. And that's exactly what he has to deal with first, is a farmer and his mother.
Yep. I thought that
Andy's
was
callbacks.
I know. I love the Andys. Yeah.
Yeah, which just leads to so many great things. We get, he gets back into town, meets back up with Danny, and the entire fight scene in the streets, that whole sequence is just great. Like, I could try to break it down point by point, but again, it's like the comedy.
Yeah, you just have to
watch the movie.
It.
Like,
you have to watch it because it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, just a lot of the shootouts, the effects. I love that he purposely does not, except for like once or twice, but even then it's like little shoulder graze shots. But he doesn't ever make killing shots. He's always like shooting other things that are falling on them. It's like proving that at the end of the day, even all the stuff that's happened, he's not out there just blasting people and shooting people. He's trying, it's non-lethal shots. He's trying to take everybody in.
He doesn't even like guns. Mm-hmm. Like, Danny had to beg him to shoot the air rifle at the Fade so that he could win what ended up being a stuffed monkey.
Yeah.
I won that for you. It was, the bromance is real with those two.
Yes.
And I like that. I like that we didn't get some romantic thing that he was supposed to be tied to. That what we really got was a bromance.
I've got something so much better for that to come out. There's a big old fuzz fact coming up for that, but you'll have to wait.
Okay.
But those other ones are taking out these NWA members one by one. The priest is a fun moment. Blowing up the doctor's foot. I love that. You're a doctor. Deal with it. Yeah, motherfucker.
Oh, man. Why do I think Nicholas Frost is really just like this, period? Because he plays these characters, and all I can think is, you're just, yeah. I think this is the third movie we've done that Nicholas Frost has been in. Because he was in Attack the Block, Shaun of the Dead, and now this one. It's good.
Yeah, so then to the pub again. That's always the answer. So what you need to do next, which I love is they're shooting the shootout with Roy and Mary Porter in the pub. Did you see the chalkboard in the pub? What the special that was written on there?
No.
2 shooters for the price of 1. So great. I do love that. And then, of course, we need the police! Someone call the police! Which is really funny, as they're having a shootout with the 2 police officers. But then the rest of the team come in, led by Frank Butterman, and, but Nicholas and Danny are able to relay to them what's really been going on. They're like, just so you know, Frank is evil. And it doesn't take much to convince them. Like, they're a smart enough group of people that they're just like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense. That's why all this has been happening.
Yeah, there's no happy accidents. Mm-hmm. I did appreciate that Danny said to his dad, if she could see what you've become, she'd kill herself all over again. Like,
yeah,
trying to get his father to snap out of it.
Yeah. Which, Frank gets shoots the little chandelier down and escapes them there. But instead of going after him, they're like, okay, we've still got other things to take care of. There's other members of this group. We've got to do that. So they head to the grocery store. I liked the nice role reversal with Fisher, because through a lot of the time, every time they go to these crime scenes, and Nicholas would be like, okay, we're going to do this, 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 and this. And then Fisher, whose job it's supposed to be to do that, would be like, what he said. So finally they flip that a little bit with Fisher having the good idea and Angel saying, yeah, what he said.
Yeah, I love that too. Because it shows that I think that Nicholas's, ways and influence on the team is starting to really come through. And they're starting to be an actual team.
Yep. And then we get the grocery store battle, which, just like the street scene, it's like, I don't need to tell you everything that happens. Just watch it. It's a lot of fun. Lots of sauce. Just many sauces all over the place.
Nicholas puts the Hound on ice.
Yeah. The Andes are incredible in the scene.
Yes.
It's just bolognese. It's great.
And Doris, after hitting that checkout girl with that wet floor sign, says nothing like a little bit of girl on girl.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, that one's taken care of. Skinner escapes, goes off with Frank. They chase them down. And then the Swan is there to lead to a final showdown at the miniature village. Which you notice whenever Nicholas and Skinner start fighting in there, and Nicholas gets to jump on him and makes Skinner drop his gun. Did you see where the gun goes? Smashes right through the front of the Summerfield store, which is the store that he runs there. Which is fun. They have that fight. I'll talk about more specifics later, I think. But I like the kid that's involved there, the one, like, the little redheaded boy that's there at the model village when Nicholas asks him his name, and he says, Aaron Aronson. Again, the Andes, a callback to something that they had said.
Yes. I remembered that from the beginning. Yeah. When
he tells him, well, look through all of the Martin's clients, the lawyer, and he was like, well, he represents everybody in Zanford, so you just want me to start going through the phone book and look through it? We'll start with Aaron A. Aronson. And it's a great, little callback joke again with the kid's name. But yeah, they take him out. So I have more of a section on like NWA that we'll talk about, maybe more specifics on that. But yeah, it's all good. The chief and the others from London are back here wanting Nicholas to go back to London and join the force there. Sorry, the service. But no, he kind of likes it here. Plus, there's a lot of paperwork to do, so
Yes, tons. And even more, than he thinks. It just keeps piling up. It's funny because they had been calling him not long after he arrived. They were already calling.
It didn't take long for them to realize, oh God, we need him.
Yeah. He's a pain in the ass, but we need him here to do the job because the rest of us are going to have to actually work if he's not here. Yeah. I think they realized it.
Yeah. We get one last little show. He says it's over. So of course it's not over.
It's
There's
never
nice
over.
Little, cliche of one more surprise villain that we forgot about. The guy that's been hiding out in the CCTV room the whole time.
Oh, Mr. Tom Weaver, played by the amazing Edward Woodward, who was Sergeant Howie in The Wicker Man, which we still need to cover. And not the remake of The Wicker Man, the real one and only true Wicker Man from 1973.
Not the bees.
Not the bees.
But yeah, through that, so we see the camaraderie. Danny takes a bullet or spray from the shotgun there. And again, the little cliches, the callback is a character that should definitely be dead, but then is revealed to still be alive just fine the 1 year later jump. Because then we see Chief Nicholas Angel and Sergeant Danny Butterman.
Love it.
Flying around in this sleek new Hot Fuzz cruiser. It's even got the HF on the roof and on the shifter. For Hot Fuzz. That's what they say what that's supposed to mean.
Mm-hmm. That was not lost on me.
But yeah, so that kind of sums up most of my notes, but with Nicholas, but then I definitely have some thoughts on different characters, and then just a ton of other random fuzz facts and fun things that are in this movie.
I know, I've got some of those
things
too.
told me.
So what do you have for Danny notes? Because we've talked about him a bit throughout this.
Yeah. Yeah, well, with Danny, of course, we get this runner through the first part of the movie. He keeps asking him about all of these movies that Nicholas definitely hasn't seen. He's like, well, what about this movie? Have you seen this movie? You like that one? And it's like, for a cop, he doesn't watch cop movies. He's not, he's got way too much going on. You mentioned the love interest thing. There is the scene where, Nicholas and Danny are there at Danny's house and he shows him the DVDs and stuff. But you see the conversation they have on the couch before. It was like, well, I just want to know what's going on in that head of yours and all of this. So there was originally a love interest written, I think by the name of Victoria or something, for Nicholas Angel. But that character and that storyline was cut completely. However, Nick Frost decided to take and deliver her lines with no changes whatsoever in that scene, which adds to the humor because you see it's kind of flirty and it's kind of weird, which because it played for the humor, but that was supposed to be more of a serious scene between Nicholas and like a love interest character, and her character got cut, and Nick Frost was like, I'll take those lines and deliver them the exact same way. And he did.
Oh my gosh. That makes it even better. I'm really glad there wasn't a love interest because I liked the idea of this being about him growing as a person and then also his influence on the other people in his world, in his new world.
Yeah, which that was probably just like the best night of Danny's life. He got to show off his favorite movies to his new friend, you know?
And what a movie collection.
Yeah.
I mean, wow. I couldn't, way more.
But I don't have a ton on Danny, but just a couple of things. Of course, it's Danny's idea to put the notebook back in Nicholas's pocket so it can save his skin once more.
Because it always does.
Yeah, because to get him to safety, like I said, he applies the ketchup trick in that notebook. But he doesn't want to accept what his father is still, even at that point. As he's trying to get Nicholas out of town, which it leads to some really great lines. Nick Frost has just great delivery of some lines.
Yeah.
I don't know about any Skellingtons. He's not Judge Judy and Executioner,
Yes.
which...
Did you have the captions on? Because I did too, and it was killing me.
I didn't have captions on because I had Fuzz Facts on instead.
Oh my gosh. It was killing me. I'm like, oh my gosh. Is that really what it's supposed to be?
But the Skellingtons, what was the other one besides Judge Judy? The, Unridiculous. That's what it was. Unridiculous is another great one. Judge Judy and Executioner needs to be used more by me in my daily life because holy shit. That's what I'm going to try to keep with me because it's so good.
It's funny. It really is quite funny.
Yeah. Again, I talked about the running joke of nobody being able to pronounce London correctly. Go back to London. And then Danny just gets to live his life in all those final battles and stuff too. He's firing 2 guns while jumping through the air. Mark that one off the list, right? Actual car chase with firing guns, another bucket list item for Danny probably. He's going bang, bang, bang. He's living his childhood dreams.
Well, and when he's laying on the ground and he can't shoot at his father because he just can't, and he shoots the gun in the air like the guy does on, I think, Point Break. And he's just like bang, 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 bang. And it's just like, oh, he's living his best life.
Yeah.
All these
his favorite scene from his favorite movie, and he gets to live it out.
It's what he wants. I mean, he thinks he can't stand how boring cop life is in Sanford. And now Angel comes in and brings all this potential for a lot of craziness. And he's all in for it because he's constantly asking about it. Constantly, what was this? And you got stabbed? And what did it feel like? And all these things. And Angel's kind of, I think, annoyed by him. But throughout the movie, you can see they get closer. And I like that a lot. Mm-hmm. He brings out the best in Danny. Makes him a better cop. because he talks about wanting to be a cop because his dad was a cop. But I feel like now he's a cop because it's what he wants.
Yeah. Be better than his dad.
Yes, definitely. I loved the scene where they were booking all of them. It was just fun.
Yeah. So that's all I've got really on Danny. Like I said, not a lot. Listen, I got through most of my stuff with Nicholas, and then a lot of what I have left is just random facts and
random facts. Okay.
Crazy things. Yeah.
I did love when they were in the bar and Frank is standing there and they're all like going to Angel's side. And he just basically says, he's not even from around here. It was just funny because that's kind of like a rural community anywhere. Like you're either from there or you're not. And when you're not a member of the inner circle. So, yeah. Yeah, so I have just a bunch of fun facts and things too.
Yeah, so I'll go over just some of it, which first, it's in two sections. One, it's just like the Frank and Skinner, which I've talked about some of those things, but then also all of the townspeople that are part of this Neighborhood Watch Alliance, NWA, which the surnames, fuzz fact, the surnames of all of these Sanford residents, of course, traditional English tradesmen's names, which alludes to the idea that the village has these like pure bloodlines, that these are the people who have held this up. You know, Joyce and Bernard Cooper, who run the inn, the Porters that run the bar. I mean, Tim Messenger is, you know, all of their names have pretty much stuff to do with their jobs, or they have these like surnames. I do like the thing from Joyce, the crossword puzzle thing. Fascism, wonderful, which that could be the motto for the NWA, right?
Yes. And then he yells back at her or says back to her, hag.
Hag, yeah. We see this in the flashback when Nicholas realizes all of the people who are involved in the murders when he sees them outside the castle. But yeah, of course, early on in the movie, when he leaves the bar before he arrests Danny, he's looking at the fountain, and there's the plaque that lists the name of every single NWA member. It literally signposts the identity of the baddies right at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, I thought it was strange too when they were having the neighborhood watch meeting, and they go into this room with this big black table and these tall chairs. Just made me think that it was some sort of like, I don't know, witchcraft or convention. It
seems pretty sinister right off the top.
It does. Yeah.
Let's see. I've talked about some of the other things. Yeah, basically just like what their whole, you know, we think it's this whole big conspiracy, and it's like the smallest things.
It is.
Well, why did Eve have to die? She had an annoying laugh. You know, like just so much greater good.
Yeah.
That's literally just about getting that Village of the Year award and keeping Sanford looking and seeming nice at the extent of murdering anyone who could tarnish it in any way.
Well, you know, speaking of that, there was the little judges committee that came in at the, you saw just that. That was made up of Peter Wilde and the mothers of Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg.
Yeah. Do you know who Peter Wilde was?
Tell me who Peter Wilde was.
Peter Wilde, because you mentioned Edgar Wright grew up right there in Somerset, in Wells and Somerset there. So he went to the Blue School. He attended the Blue School in Somerset. There's a plaque there that is honoring Edgar Wright. So his drama teacher, his old drama teacher at the Blue School, is who that is.
Oh my gosh.
Is Peter Wilde.
So he's just bringing people in. He
brought in his old drama teacher for that role, and then drama students who are current students there at the Blue School made up a lot of extras, specifically all of the hoodies and the underage drinkers at the bar.
Oh my gosh.
We're all current Blue School theater students.
That's awesome. Oh man.
So he since they're filming right there in his own hometown, able to kind of give back to the school that gave him so much by giving a lot of them parts in the movie.
Wow. Well, Edgar Wright was doing... They had a screening of the film in Newcastle upon Tyne, which you may or may not have ever heard of that location. However...
Might have.
He revealed that there were 2 Oscar winners that were, cleverly covered up, including Cate Blanchett, who played Janine, and Peter Jackson, who played the Santa Claus who stabs Angel through the hand. And that's not even all of the Academy Award nominated people that were in this movie, because there are more. Since this movie came out, that there are many that have either gone on to be nominated or win an Academy Award or some other award for their acting.
Yeah. See what else I've got. Oh, there's a line early on that Nicholas says, "Guilty people make the first move."
Yes.
And when he rides back into town, it's Mr. Treacher with that long coat. We finally see why he's wearing that.
Yep.
With the shotgun. He makes the first move. Of course, with Frank stealing the car that Nicholas and Danny drove in with to try to get away one last time. Forgot about the swan still in there. Very a la Jurassic Park, or, different things with the monsters in the car with you. It's another cliche. There's a lot of those kind of things that they wanted to put into this movie. So that was their form of that.
It's so clever, the way that they put these things together and remembered that it's all in there. So it's still connected. And that takes a lot of planning.
Mm-hmm. That's what Edgar Wright does, is everything is connected.
Yeah.
He's very good at planning things out. And then, of course, we talk about Mr. Weaver, who they forgot about, who's still there in the station at the end. He's there with a vengeance, and he would have gotten away with it, too, if it weren't for that meddling bullet taking Danny and Chekhov's sea mine.
Yeah, we won't be hearing from him again.
Let's see, other random things. I think we've talked about most of them. Oh, Sandford, where the name comes from. In fact, there's a lot of fuzz facts here. Is the name of the theoretical town that was used in a lot of police role plays and written exams.
Oh, okay. That makes sense, I guess.
Mm-hmm. We see Bill Bailey.
Love
playing,
Bill Bailey.
The
twins.
2 characters there. The first time we see him, when they walk in, he is reading a novel by Ian Banks.
Mm-hmm.
And then later when they walk back in the curly-haired version of him, the twin, is reading a novel by Ian M. Banks, which is the name that author goes by for his sci-fi work. So he has 2 different things. He has 2 different names. It was kind of a little hint at that, the twin.
That they're twins. Yeah. I didn't catch it the first time, except that I thought that he looked different. But, yeah, I wasn't sure. This time I really paid attention, and it's yeah. They don't realize he's a twin. Or Angel doesn't realize he's a twin.
Yeah. When they introduce Sergeant Fisher, the flip chart behind him, that diagram, this title, "What Makes a Bad Police Officer?" And then it has all these negative traits. But then the way they film it, his head's right in the middle with all of these traits pointing towards him, which is really funny. Let's see. Talked about that. Oh, yeah. Eve Draper. We haven't talked too much. The leading lady, our Juliet, of course, played by Lucy Punch, who we just recently saw in our holiday special that came out a little bit ago.
Yeah, she's quite popular in all British things. They pick people that I've seen in so many of the comedies or the mysteries, detective shows that I watch, because I have a subscription to BritBox and I watch a lot of Midsummer Murders and some of the other cool shows.
Let's see, got a few. Rafe Spall chuckling at the word skid marks every single time it's said is gold, and I love it.
Remember him playing, was it Bud? Who worked at Sean's TV store, yeah. He's come a long way since then.
Yes. Tim Messenger's grisly fate is foreshadowed I got some more fuzz facts for you. It's foreshadowed a little bit at this church fete. The Reverend announces, when that scene first starts, you hear the Reverend's voice. A big surprise at 3:00 for someone. And then, of course, while Nicholas is kind of eyeing the situation and watching Messenger and then looking back at Simon Skinner, Simon is yelling, "Splat the rat."
Oh, Simon, you're such a bad, bad boy. Even though you were James Bond, for a few movies, you're such a bad, bad, bad man.
Yeah, you mentioned the Village of the Year officials. And then lastly, this one's not about this movie. It's about another movie that we do need to cover. But this was one of those fuzz facts that was thrown out, and I thought it was kind of cool. In the film 28 Weeks Later, which we haven't covered, but we need to cover that. We need
to cover it, yeah.
There is a reference to Hot Fuzz in that movie. They name check a town called Sanford. And this was Alex Garland's inside joke, a little bit of payback for the infected monkeys reference that was made in Shaun of the Dead.
Oh, I love when directors do that.
Yeah.
I love when they choose clever ways to poke sticks at other movies.
Yeah. Yeah. So like 28 Days came out, and then Shaun of the Dead kind of made fun of it with the infected monkeys. So then in Alex Garland's sequel to that, he poked fun at Hot Fuzz a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great.
Oh my gosh. I didn't know that. That is really cool.
Which, by the way, Alex Garland has a new movie coming out.
Did you see it? I feel like I'm gonna...
I only saw the, poster.
Oh.
And there was nothing, it said, plot under wraps, no details. And then the trailer hadn't come out yet. I think the trailer's out now. I haven't watched it yet. And partially, I'm like, do I want to stay 100% blind? I don't know, because I know it comes out,
what is it called?
Next year.
Do you know what it's called?
I don't even remember, no.
Civil War.
Civil War, that's it, yeah. But again, I'm almost not wanting to watch the trailer and want any information, because I was like, it's Alex Garland. I've loved everything he's done. He doesn't do movies very often. There's wide gaps between projects, and so he's only got just a handful of movies out, and I've seen all of them, and all of them I love. So it's almost at this point, just I'm going to see it on principle anyway, so maybe just going in completely blind is the way to go.
I won't spoil it. I will just say that it hits really hard.
Mm-hmm.
The trailer.
It's good at that.
It hits incredibly hard, and it's very realistic. And that, yeah. I think it is kind of fitting our world. Mm-hmm. So we may have to cover it. And I, too, really like Alex Garland's work.
Yeah. Well, we need to cover other movies of his anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, 28 Weeks. But then I've talked about doing Annihilation.
Yes.
I need to do that. I don't think Ex Machina really fits necessarily, but it is a great movie. I love it a lot as well.
Sometimes we stretch our umbrella just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Just, pull it. It's nice that it's made of stretchy material so that we can pull it over to where we need it to be.
Right. I mean, we kind of did that with this movie, but I don't know.
We
Ex
did,
Machina
yeah.
Might be a big stretch, but still good.
You know what? I have to admit, I've never seen it.
Oh, it's so good.
I really should take...
Oscar Isaac.
Man. Oh, man. Mr. Knight. Yep. Well, I have just a couple of things. After the huge success that Shaun of the Dead was, Simon Pegg, Edgar Wright, they were pretty much given free rein to do whatever they wanted to with this movie. And I'm so glad, because I don't want to imagine it with any restraints. Because I think it was a wonderful project and film, and wish that they always got that opportunity. So Jim Broadbent was a huge fan of Shaun of the Dead and asked them if he could have a role in their next film. So they wrote Frank Butterman just for him. which I think is kind of cool. Simon Pegg worked out and lost about 28 pounds to prepare for his role as Nicholas Angel. Edgar Wright wrote the role of Simon Skinner with Timothy Dalton in mind, so he was super excited when he signed on to play Simon Skinner. My last one, Nick Frost only agreed to be in this movie if he could get to name his character. So he watched, they told him to please watch like 20 action films to get warmed up, and he only watched one. And that movie was Bad Boys 2. Which turned out to be a big part of this movie. I mean, really. Yeah. So yeah, that is all I have.
Nice.
I feel like we did it.
We got it. Hot Fuzz is a wrap. I love talking Edgar Wright. I love
me too.
Talking goofy, funny movies, and it was a good time.
Well, and we've had some tougher, darker movies lately, so I feel like we were in need of this.
Yes,
we needed something that was a little lighter, just to kind of clear everything out so we can continue on with the season. So I'm glad that we did this one. And even if we did have to stretch our umbrella for it to fit under it, it's our podcast. We can do what we want.
Exactly. That's our number one rule we always live by. And of course, we're adding more to the list all the time when we cover movies because, like I said, officially, 28 weeks later, but also Annihilation I brought up again.
Yeah.
And then, of course, The World's End, definitely going to happen.
Yeah.
We got to finish the trilogy. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Got more to look forward to.
Definitely. I wonder what our listeners...
Oh, man.
Oh.
Well.
Wow.
There it is. So, I know it's almost as if queued up. As soon as we start talking about it, it starts ringing. It's crazy. So, yeah. Go get that feedback phone and we can see what people have to say about Hot Fuzz. All right, we do have some feedback here this week for Hot Fuzz. Super excited to get into that. Got some fun ones. So, yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. Daphne, what we got first?
All right. So, Catherine says, Hot Fuzz is such a fun movie. I noticed something different on each rewatch. I'm looking forward to the production notes section this week, as I assume the people that made this also made Shaun of the Dead, but I just learned about the Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy and The World's End, which I've never seen. I don't want to look into that one anymore in case it's covered in a future season. Catherine, it will be covered.
Oh yeah, we are 100% covering The World's End because we're finishing this Cornetto trilogy. And I love The World's End. It's a fun one. And Daphne hasn't seen that one yet.
I know.
So
crazy, right?
It'll definitely be a fun way to go about it. I haven't seen it in a little bit of time. Last time I watched it was in preparation for the Edgar Wright Wilhelm episode that I was on with Ben. So I watched all the Cornetto movies and stuff again, plus Baby Driver and Scott Pilgrim. So it's due a rewatch. It's been a little bit.
Pake, you don't need a reason to watch Scott Pilgrim. You watch it more than most people.
I don't need a reason or excuse to watch anything Edgar Wright, honestly. I'm in. But yeah, back to Catherine's little feedback here. Yes, so you're right. Yeah, Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, World's End, the Cornetto trilogy, all by Edgar Wright, starring Nick Frost and Simon Pegg. Yeah, definitely great movies, and we will finish up the trilogy. You said next season, maybe in a future season, maybe even this season. I don't know. We'll see. Just how antsy I get to finally want to cover it, we'll see. But yeah, it will come soon enough. We'll get there.
All right.
All right, and then we do have another message here from Greg, which awesome. Great to hear from Greg. He says, this is one of my favorites. I actually saw this before Shaun of the Dead because I didn't care for Dawn of the Dead or zombie flicks in general. The Britishness of massacring people because they committed slight affronts to the HOA rules still makes me giggle, which may say something about me. As a fan of the Vicar of Dibley, with a similar small village feel, I think he got much of the Brit countryside nuance right. Of course, I say that as an uncultured American, but I am what I am. I loved the twist that there was never a good reason for murdering the victims, like exposing corruption or blackmail. It was spelling errors, bad taste, or lawn length. And while much of the movie is memorable and quotable, the reporter's still standing body with the spire emerging from his neck still sticks out in my memory. And yarp, or Narp. Still leave my mouth on occasion. I think this is the best of the Cornetto, and in my opinion, Edgar Wright at his best.
Ooh.
Great. I love that feedback, Greg.
Yeah. That was very thorough. I appreciate it. Well, if you'd like to submit your feedback like Catherine or Greg, you can find us on Facebook or Instagram at Run for Your Lives Podcast. You can email us at runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com. If you are enjoying the show, please tell your friends. We are available on Apple, Spotify, all other podcast players. Go to runforyourlivespodcast.com for all the links that you're ever going to need. And give us a review on Apple Podcasts. That is the best way. Share the love. Get us out there even more. We really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, we do. Speaking of sharing the love, of course, I got to give those shout outs to things going on in the podcast universe around us right here on Podcastica. Lots of fun stuff to check out. Of course, the cast of us still doing their Walking Dead rewatch this week with the season 2, episode 5 episode titled Chupacabra. So you can check that out. The Marvel TV cast is working their way through Echo. It all dropped at once, but they're taking their time to kind of go through it and break down the episodes. So they did episode 2 this week. So definitely be checking up with them. Lots of great coverage over there, and Echo was so much fun. I really enjoyed it. I binged it all in like 2 sittings, and it was great. So I'm excited to see what they have to say about it. I hope you guys check that out. Over on Revisited, Ben and Kristen covering season 2, episode 4 of Ted Lasso, as they're revisiting Ted Lasso. Of course, that's the Carol of the Bells episode, so be sure to check that out. It's a good one. But, I mean, every Ted Lasso episode is a good one. There's not a not good episode of Ted Lasso.
Absolutely.
So over on the Squid Game cast, Jason, joined by David and Karen, a little bit of a Podcastica throwback trio there, to finally get the wrap-up episode of the first season of Squid Game. That is episode 9, One Lucky Day. So yeah, the coverage of season 1 coming to a close. Has some great guests on there to talk about that finale. And then we just wait for season 2 whenever that happens.
It's
we know it's
coming.
on the way. Yeah.
We know it's on the way.
So definitely check that one out. Then the Still Slaying Buffy podcast, of course, season 3, episode 4 with Kara and Penny. Beauty and the Beast, the name of the episode there. So if you're a Buffy fan, definitely check that out. And I know they've been picking and choosing kind of certain episodes from different things, but they are just covering season 3 in its entirety. I was never a Buffy fan, so I don't know much. But of course, from what I've heard and what people have talked about, season 3 is like just peak Buffy. So they were like, well, we can't pick favorites from the season, so we're just going to do the whole season. So they're along for a season 3 ride for sure. And then just other great stuff on Podcastica to check out. What is From, the From podcast, the MGM Plus show From. Again, I'll plug it every week that you need to watch that show if you haven't. It's so good. Alex and Lizzie been covering that. And yeah, they're still rewatching it kind of as now that we've seen everything, let's kind of go back and look at the stuff we missed or thought about differently now that we've seen it all in season 1 is where they're at right now, which is the way things are now is episode 2. So they're starting to get off on that, or get through that. So definitely check that out. And then lastly on House Podcastica, the joint coverage with Wilhelm of Monarch Legacy of Monsters has come to an end as well. Another wrap up for a podcast for a little bit of a time being. And so yeah, the season finale, episode 10, Beyond Logic, Mark and Ben covered that with some fun guests. I wonder who those could have been.
I'm not sure who you're referring to.
I don't know. Yeah, definitely check that out if you've been watching Monarch, because yeah, you can hear me and Daphne just gush about that finale and kind of our thoughts on the season as a whole. And it was really fun to hang out and talk with Mark and Ben about that. It's a great show, great season.
I think it's great that we waited until the finale to be on, because I think that was the perfect episode for us.
Yeah, definitely a lot of fun stuff there. So check all that great stuff out on Podcastica. And if you need some more great podcast stuff, always make sure to check out our friends over at TV Podcast Industries and Panels to Pixels for some good comic booky show coverage. Both of them have their What If coverage from What If Season 2 that was at the end of last year. So if you need something to go check out there, go check out that as well. And I think TV Podcast Industry is also doing some Echo coverage.
They are doing some Echo coverage as well.
Make sure to check that out. But yeah, that's it for the other podcasts, but you're listening to us, so hopefully that means you'll come back and give us another listen next week, because we got something fun next week for sure. Something a little heavy, something a little deep, but one of my favorite movies. Daphne, what are we doing next week? Fill me in.
Well, we meet an adult Danny Torrance who is still dealing with lingering trauma from his time at the Overlook Hotel, while also confronting a new supernatural threat involving a malignant group known as the True Knot. That's right, we're going back to the Flaniverse as we discuss Mike Flanagan's 2019 film Dr. Sleep, starring Ewan McGregor, Rebecca Ferguson, and Kylie Curran.
Yeah. So for those who know, I'm sure most people know, of course, Dr. Sleep being a Stephen King adaptation. It is the sequel to The Shining. We haven't covered The Shining on here yet. We're just jumping right into the sequel. But again, Dr. Sleep's one of my favorites. Flanagan, I mean, you have me at Mike Flanagan no matter what, always. So I'm sure we'll go back and do The Shining at some point. But Dr. Sleep had to be covered on here. It's like I said, one of my favorites, and one of those movies. It's like, how have we not talked about Dr. Sleep yet? Let's do it.
Well, with that, we've reached the end of our episode. Thanks, everyone, for listening. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And if you have to run, you better run for the greater good.
The greater good.